Hello everyone. So after the first video that was basically a presentation of the mindset that you have to have when you're going into programming in Python, and now we will get into the little details, for example, like where do I program in, and but we won't go too far into that. I'll just tell you things that you can look up in the internet. There are several programs that allow you to write code, but my favorite by far is Visual Studio Code, I believe it's called. It's from Microsoft, and you need to install some plugins for Python and install Python. You just check that up on the internet real fast, and I'm sure you will find a lot of content in regard to that. Because I'm not a tech wizard by any means, I just Google things up and do as people explain it to me. So yeah, it won't be a problem for you. So these are little programs that I wrote for whatever reason. It's been a while, and now we'll start with, I'll just write down test. Okay, test.py, py for Python, where yeah, this is a Python file where the code is written. So first I want to explain what's going on here. On the left side is the Python files, or whatever kind of files that you create. When you click on them, you're redirected to the file which we have the tabs, of which we have the tabs up here. We are now at test.py, the one that we're going to use today. Here is the place where we write the code, and here down we see the results of the code. There is a lot of things that people get into, like the problems, output, terminal, debug console. There is a lot of things here to see, PowerShell, blah, blah, blah. Do you need to know all that? No, you just need to know that the output is generally going to be here down in the terminal. And if there is also some problem with the code, here you will have pointers of what the problem is. And yeah, that's basically it. Here we have this run Python file icon. When you write the code, you click this, then the code runs from top to bottom. But the things that we want to start with is the last thing that we discussed in the PowerPoint presentation that I did, and it was about the thing that we need to do in any programming language is naming things. So in that example that I took was of Adam naming things in things that were pre-created, but here it is a little bit different. It's like as you name, things get created. That's the mindset that I have about it. So one thing that to be totally 100% transparent, I will be saying such things that are probably not 100% accurate with how things work, but this is the general gist of it. I hate the overly academic way of explaining things. I will just go through the things that I did and learned and explain it in an easy to learn manner, because to me it took a lot of time to go through 2 books, I believe, until I really got a grasp of how things are working. So I don't really care about the really technical details, and I think you shouldn't either. It's more of the mindset of testing and modifying as you go that you need to generally have with programming. So yeah, the thing that we are going to discuss here is, I'll have a screenshot of this so that I can draw. Okay, I'll take it like this. So the thing with this is, here are my notes for today's lessons. Okay, so the things that you need to remember about it is that the code here is executed in a linear fashion. It starts from the top and then it goes downwards. So each line is finished from the top downwards until, for example, the 18th line. This has 18 lines of code, and it finishes straight linearly until the 18th, and that's it. Does it happen that sometimes we jump back to some prior line within the code? Yes, it does. We will discuss that in the future with loops and while functions, but that's something off into the future that you shouldn't worry about. The thing that you should have in your mind right now is that, yeah, the computer is done, and it goes and executes every line like this from the top downwards until the end of the code. So that's the only thing that you need to keep in mind. I'll keep this screenshot just for the case that I'll need it later to explain things, because this is basically explain as you go kind of approach, and I'll try to get all the groundwork explained and the basics of this one. So what's important? So we wanted to name things. How do we name things? We had this robot that squared numbers, I believe, in the presentation, and it was something insanely with a name something like squaring numbers robot or something like that. But here you see we get these squiggly lines and the red lines and yellow lines and one thing here, add from blah, blah, blah. Do we need to understand that? No, we just see that this isn't working. Why? Because when you're naming things in Python, you can't have spaces, because the spaces indicate that, okay, what is coming now is some kind of function like and, or something like this. But in this case, we are just trying to name things and we can't have spaces, and we could do it like this: squaring numbers robot is equal to, and now we see that the squiggly line is away. We only have a small squiggly line here after the equal sign, because it is expecting us to write in some value. But isn't this a little bit too long? Do you have the nerves to write it every time, squaring? Well, actually, you don't have to write it down every time. You see that the program fills it in for automatically so that you do less work, but it still is kind of a chore. So you should probably stick to short names. Squaring numbers. Okay, squaring numbers. And we would say, for example, let's say that the number is 2 times 2, and we have, of course, 4, and we can check that. But we are going straight up to the next step, which is one step ahead of where I want to go. But in order to have someone to square numbers, because I told you that there are values, things, and there are people who do things, like the robot squares the numbers. So these things where one robot does something, I call them robots in this case, but they are something like functions or things like that, arithmetic equations or whatever. But first, for the robot to have something to do, we need to have the numbers, okay? So now we are going to focus on the numbers. So num2 square is, for example, the number 4, okay? So now what I'm telling the computer is that we have one thing, is the number 4, which is named num2 square. Okay, so this sounds a little complicated. There is a thing, we are calling it 4, but here the Python thinks that the number 4 is num2 square. What is here really happening? The way that I would like you to think about the names of the variables, because this is a variable, a value, an object, is like tiny boxes. So for example, num2 square would be one box. Let me try to draw a box. It's one box, which when you remove the lid and you look inside, there is the tiny number 4 written in it, or an object that is formed in the number, like the number 4. Doesn't matter, but what we are trying to say is that within this box, there is the number 4, the value 4, the object that is formed like the number 4, but on top of this box is written what was our variable name, num2 square. So it's num2, well, you get it, I'll go past num2 square. So the variable name, which is this one here, okay, is a box with the name written on top of it. And the right side of the equal sign is what is in the box. So that's the easier way to remember it. So there is a box with the name num2 square, and within it there is a 4. Great, so we created the first object, which is the number 4, and its name for it on the box where it is placed. Now we want to create the robot. So the robot takes the number that wants to be squared, that it wants to square, and multiplies it with itself, right? So we will write down rob squarer is equal to, so rob squarer is the robot that squares numbers, and it takes up, so this robot squarer, it's a box, okay? So the robot is within the box, like with the number 4 that was in the box called number2 square. Now the rob squarer is another box where on top of it is written rob squarer, and within it is a little robot that does the calculations that we're going to write for it. So the calculation is going to be 4 times 4. Okay, right? And 4 times 4 equals 16. So it means that the rob squarer is squaring the number 4. But how do we know, like, for example, if we change the number2 square to 9, the robot squarer is still going to multiply 4 by 4. So it has to change this value within it as well. How do we do that? We tell the robot to take the num2 square, okay, and to multiply it with itself, okay, to multiply it with itself. So what does the rob squarer box opens up? Within it there is the robot. This robot, what does it do? It goes and finds the box with the name num2 square, okay, opens it up and finds a 9 in this case, and then multiplies it by itself. And then this will bring the outcome of the number 81. But we are doing the calculation by ourselves. Let's suppose that the number to be squared is not 9, but it's something insane like this number, 56,789. And I have no chance to know the result. How do I get the computer to tell me? So the computer is dumb, remember? So in order to get the value that is found out by the little robot, multiplying the number to be squared by itself in order to find the squared number, we must tell the computer now to show it to us. In order to show things to us, we write print, which is like a command. We tell the computer, okay, show me, print it out for me. What is the value of the rob squarer? So the rob squarer, the robot, finds the value from this number, multiplies it when the robot takes the number out of the box, multiplies it by itself, and then in his hands is a new number. And we don't know what that is, but we've written down some lines of codes in order to find that out. So let's see. How do we get the results to be seen down here? Because we said here in the terminal, everything will be shown, the outputs. We remember that in the beginning, I said that there is this run Python file button, and then here downwards, here is the output. Okay, let me see what this place is in output. Nope, doesn't matter. So this is how I also keep learning about my about programming, or whatever reason I want to experiment. In output, there's nothing to be seen, but in the terminal, we get the output. So, but normally when you hover the mouse over the symbols, you should be getting, like in this case, the shortcuts, and in the Visual Studio Code, it's Control and F5, and it runs the code from top to bottom. So here is our result, 56789. When it is squared, it's this number right here. We want to make sure that this is not just a blabber, not just some mistake. Let's open up the calculator. 5 seconds, okay, and 9 times 5, 9, okay, 9, okay. Yeah, 32224, 32224, 9990, 521, 521, yep, it's the same number. Now we can do the same thing over and over again by changing the number that is squared into 8, and we can run the same program again, and now we have here 64. Let's change it up, 10, okay, and now we run it again, it's 100, okay? So this is something where we change one box's value, so one number value, and then the code, because it's written in this way, that whatever is in the first box is multiplied by itself, also it changes the value that is given in the end. If we had kept this rub square in 4 times 4 as in the beginning, it would keep giving the same number, okay? It would be 16. Why? Because we are just multiplying the same numbers over and over, and it doesn't matter what value change we are giving to the first one. So good. So the, overall, that's the biggest leap that you need to do in this kind of sense is just trying over and over and writing other objects and other things to get the results that you want. For example, in this one, we created a robot that squares numbers. But in the future, might be that you want, let's say you're a fruit seller and you have bananas and you have 15 of them. You have apples. You have 27 of them. You have pears. You have 39 of them, and so on and so forth. And you want to know how many fruit you have. So the number of fruit. So what we created up until now is 3 boxes with the numbers of apples, bananas, and pears in them. So one box is written bananas on top of it. Within it, there are 15 bananas. One box is called apples. There are 27, sorry. And the other one is pears, and it has 39. Now, in order to find the number of fruit that you have in total, we are creating a robot that is called fruit, and we are telling it to add bananas plus bananas, okay, plus apples, okay, plus pears. Okay, good. So this robot that is called fruit opens up bananas, sees that there are 15 of it, then goes and opens up apples and sees there are 27. Adds both of them together, then goes to the pears, opens up that box, there are 39, and adds that to the previous number. And in the end, the robot that is called fruit has in its hand the value of all of these 3 boxes together, which means the number of fruits all of them have together. In order to ask the robot, hey robot, tell me the number of fruit, we tell the computer, print fruit, because the robot called fruit has the value of bananas plus apples plus pears together. And now we run the code, and we have 81. So this is how many fruit we have in this case. But all we did right now is just adding and multiplying. Can we do other things? Of course, we can do subtraction, and division. You can find square roots. You can square numbers, because that way we did earlier is just not so ideal way, but we will get to that later. The first thing that I want you to remember is how this whole thing with naming and values was shaped out. If you got an idea for that, what variables are. So variables are boxes. In programming, it's called variables, are these boxes that have a name on top of it. And when you open the box, there is something within it. There are different types of things that can be within it. We have talked just about numbers, and we also talked only about operators that are modifying numbers, so plus and multiplying. So this would be the first thing for you to remember. It's what variables are and how these robots, which is just arithmetic equations, when you look at it, it's just plus something, times something, etc. And if you get a grip of how those things are working and how the print command works, then I think you're doing pretty good. At this time, after I would have watched this video, what I would do is just keep over and over, do this for like 30 minutes. Okay, let's say I'm a seller and I'm selling computers, and I have 15 computers. And now remaining computers are 8. Okay, so now I had 15 computers, now they are 8, and I want to calculate how many I sold. So I'll create a robot, sold robot. I'm just saying robot for the sake of making it easier, because I can keep stories in mind much easier, but you can write it even less crowded in a minimalistic way, like sold is equal to computers minus remaining computers. So this, what this robot called sold will do, it will go open up the box named computers, will see the number 15, take it with it, and then go to the remaining computers, open that box and see the number 8, and then it will subtract the 8 from the 15, and in the end we will have the number 7. But if we run the code like this, what happens? Nothing. Why? What's my mistake? Oh my god, what did I forget? I forgot to tell my computer that to tell me the information that they got from the robot named sold. So we say print, like tell me, print the value of sold, and now it will tell me it's 7. So what you do is create such fake scenarios in your head and just do it over and over again with plus, minus, whatever. And when you find something that isn't working, Google it. Why isn't that working? You can also post it on Reddit or whatever, or ask in the videos down below, and I'll try to answer. But the major way of how you're going to learn things is just testing it out, testing the limits. So the first thing is over. We learned about what naming things is, like what variables are. They are like boxes that contain some type of value. In this case, we talked only about numbers. Then that we can write variables, which are also tiny robots that can do minimalistic calculations, like this one, computer minus remaining computers, blah, blah, blah. And we also learned how to tell the computer to show us the result, okay, the value of the tiny robot doing its thing. But let's say we don't care about that. The number of computers, the remaining computers, it's all written, hidden in the computer, in this computer that I have right now. And we want to know how many computers were there to begin with. I have a terrible memory. I just see the number of remaining computers. I can count them 1 to 8. How would I tell my computer to tell me how many computers, okay, this sounds so complicated, were there in the first place? I'm the seller of the computers. So you can opt to print other boxes or values or variables without going for the last one. You can just write computers within it. Computers. Oh, sorry. Computers. And when we click to run, we see the number 15 because it's printing the value of the box computers, okay? When you say print, the computer goes to the variable named computers, opens it up and sees that it's 15 and says, okay, I got the number for you, boss, and writes it down here for 15. I wanted to add into the video, but I just remember this, that I didn't talk about naming the, printing out the previous values of variables, which is possible. But if you're a curious mind, you'd say, okay, let's take this, Control X, we cut it, and put it in the beginning. It should do the same thing. Do you see the squiggly line? The reason is because the computers are stupid. The computers has no idea what's happening. You're just, the first command that you're telling it to do is print computers, print the box computers. But as you see here, the first thing is print computers, and the computer is stuck right there because it doesn't know what the variable or the box computers is. This cannot be done because in the second line is where it is explained what computers is. Computers is a box with the number 15 within it. I said when we name things, we are creating them. At this point in the first line, the computers variable doesn't exist. So my computer is, my laptop is confused about this. It doesn't know what's happening. That's why it's putting the squiggly lines here below. So in order to print values, you first must, so in order for the laptop to tell me the values, it first must create those values. Okay, so computers is equal to 15 should be before this print command. And then it can show it to me of what that is. So this is another way of telling you that what I just told you before is that the computer is dumb and it goes from the top to bottom by each and every line. So you have to think about it beforehand, what should be created and what when it should be printed and so on and so forth. So this is something to keep in mind. Yeah, so this would be it. This would be it, I believe, and we can discuss some more things in the coming video. Yep. So this would be it, and we can discuss more things in the coming video because this one is getting too long, and I'll be back to the names and things like that, and we'll discuss it with time. This would be it, I believe, and we can discuss some more things in the coming video.